Good to go. Thank you, guys. Hey there, guys. Welcome to tonight's episode of the Second Syndicate. We have some very special guests tonight. My name is Teddy Collins. I'm with Spartan Defense Armory, and I've got my co-host here, Alicia Garcia.
Woo woo! It's me. You guys know who I am. It says it on my shirt.
So, guys, we got some special guests here tonight that are coming on, and we're going to get you guys a legislative briefing here very shortly about what's going on with Senate Bill 003 as well as some other gun bills. Tonight we have Senior Master Sergeant Israel Del Toro. Thank you for coming on tonight, sir. We'll get to a more formal introduction here in a few seconds. We've also got Raul Mendez, who's here with us as well. So just to give you guys a little bit of a legislative update of where we are on these bills, I'm just going to start with the first one, and we will get to 003 here in a minute. We're going to start with the bill to increase criminal penalties for firearms theft in the state of Colorado. This is something that you would think would be pretty common sense. It raises it from currently a misdemeanor to steal a firearm to a Class 6 felony. Believe it or not, during the hearing, it has passed through the hearing. It barely squeaked its way through. There were multiple Democrats that unfortunately did not want this bill to pass, and you would think that this would be a common sense. They want to pass more stringent gun control on us law-abiding citizens, but yet they won't hold those accountable for committing gun crime, including those who like to drive cars through firearm stores like I've experienced myself. That being said, guys, this bill has passed through the committee, and it will be heard on the full House floor. I highly urge you to reach out to your legislative representatives and members and let them know that you support this bill. Again, this is not for the possession of a stolen firearm. This is for the actual act and theft of a firearm, of stealing a firearm. It's pretty common sense. Representative Armagost is the one who has championed this bill and sponsored this bill.
Shout out to Armagost.
Big shout out. If you don't know who Ryan Armagost is, you should start looking him up. He's probably the biggest Second Amendment supporter in the Colorado legislature currently. Big shout out to him for getting this through. We'll see how it goes on the House. Moving on.
Before we move on to that one, I want to make a quick note about that because I want the people to understand that we had 100% turnout in testimony that day in support of this bill. Right
Correct.
now, if you go out, you steal a firearm, it is still a misdemeanor, which means you could literally walk into a gun store, apply for your background check, and be able to buy a firearm legally, knowing that you are committing crimes with a stolen firearm. So that to me is asinine. We did have Espinoza and Clifford join in support of this, which was kind of shocking to me.
Yeah, Bacon was against it.
Please don't get me started on that.
Yeah.
So it passed the House. Keep reaching out to your legislators, like we said, in support of it so we can prevent violent crime. We need harsher penalties for criminals, and this is a good start for that.
Moving on to House Bill 25-1133. This is the bill that basically the ammunition bill, as they're calling it. Just to give you guys a brief of what this does, it did pass out of committee. It passed by one vote on a party line basis. This bill would increase the age. This bill would increase the age to purchase ammunition from 18 to 21. There is no exception for military, veterans, anybody of that nature in this bill. On top of that, good luck getting ammo sent to your house in the state of Colorado if this bill does pass. It has to go through the House and the Senate still, so maybe we'll be able to kill this bill. Hopefully we are, but as of right now, if this bill passes, you will not be able to purchase ammunition online anymore in the state of Colorado. Essentially, it requires that no label be put on the package stating that is ammunition. That's actually against federal law.
It is.
It's against current shipping policy for UPS and FedEx and U.S. Postal Service.
Because it's a hazardous material and it could be, incendiary. It could be, there's a whole bunch of issues for that.
Correct.
So that would violate federal law.
Yeah, it would violate federal law. Here's the other problem with it. If you do not have labels on the outside of the box that it is ammunition, how does the delivery person that's delivering this know that it's ammunition, that it requires a signature and an identification check? Because this actually puts the crime on the deliverer. If if someone from UPS delivers this ammo, does not check valid ID, and does not get a signature from someone 21 years of age or older, they could actually be charged with a misdemeanor for delivering this ammo. And there's nothing on the outside of the package to tell them there's ammo, so how do they know they need to do that?
So this is an asinine. Another way that you're seeing that bills like this are getting written is because people who have no experience with firearms, that are anti-firearm, that are listening to propaganda organizations like Everytown and Giffords and things of that nature, are putting this nonsense in their mind. They're writing these bills for these legislators. So they're approaching senators, they're approaching House representatives, and they're saying, hey, we want you to put your name on this. I know there probably is some sort of incentive for them to push these types of bills,
100%.
And yet they're asinine, they make no sense, and all it does is make people like you and me, great people that are employees of these type of companies, liable for bad things.
100%. And here's the other thing, just so you know, when I say the word ammunition, here's how the bill defines ammunition. Ammunition means an ammunition or cartridge case, primer, bullets or propellants powder designed for use in a firearm. So just so you guys understand what that means any reloading components as well in this bill will be banned from being shipped into the state of Colorado to individuals. That'll have to go through an FFL. That might be good for some FFLs, but at the same time, it is an affront to the Second Amendment and something that we hope that we can strike down in court. We will see.
We here at the Second Syndicate are 100% pro 2A. We are absolutists.
No compromise.
So this is why we want to bring this type of information to you, the public, because this is affecting us. If you haven't watched the Rocky Mountain Heist on YouTube, you should definitely check it out. It is a really good background to why these things are happening in Colorado and why this attack is being brought to us. One of the things I do want to note about the ammo bill is Kyle Mullica. He's one of the sponsors of that bill.
Yeah.
And he is one of the reasons that we have also Senate Bill 003, the most egregious gun bill that Colorado has ever seen, and we're going to get into that right now. And he was a traitor to the 2A. I would love to see if we can get rid of him. He is actually in my district, so somebody needs to run against this POS because what he did is very egregious. So let's break down the most awful one that we have so far. That's Senate Bill 25003. It passed 15 to 18 vote.
We had some turncoats that had committed to no and then decided to do yes.
Ugh.
So, yeah.
So let's talk about this. So the 19th vote that would have affected this was a Democrat senator who retired due to an ethical misconduct violation. Her name is Sonia Jaquez Lewis. She is a Democrat out of Longmont who is under investigation for violating Senate ethic rules right now. She announced her resignation on Tuesday morning. So she fabricated a letter from an aide that surfaced, so she resigned, so it was just a bad look all the way around. So now that there is a vacancy in that seat, and that's going to go to a vacancy committee. And I want you to understand how dangerous this is, because last year the two sponsors of the assault weapons ban bill were also appointees. They were
not elected.
Commies and socialists.
Yes.
So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen here, so think about that. Dylan Roberts, he committed to a no vote. He betrayed that. He had given word to the NSSF and Rocky Mountain gun owners that he was not going to support this. He turned coat, flipped, which he did also last year on the sensitive spaces bill. So we need to get rid of that guy very badly.
From my understanding, he's not going to be running for re-election. He's going to be running for Attorney General. So,
great.
Let's make sure he doesn't get that seat.
That stinks.
Because this bill, Senate 003, gives him the power to decide.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
So Senator Mullica also voted to support the gun bill despite saying he would not. We actually initiated a recall of Tony Exum.
We did.
So we created a website called recallexum.com, and we got a lot of people involved in that. I also announced it morning of the debate on the Senate floor on the radio that morning, said if he didn't do what we wanted him to do, that we were going to fulfill a recall for him. He was shaking in his boots, and he decided to not support this gun bill. So we want to make sure that he knows that we know that the pressure worked. But
also, just to add to that, if you don't mind, one thing that he stated is that the only reason, in fact, that he voted no on this bill was because of that recall initiative and effort. Not because he believed in the bill or didn't believe in the bill. In fact, he essentially spit in the face of his constituents. So he's up for re-election in 2026. We hope to have a very good candidate run against him and take his seat.
Another person who flipped was Lindsay, Daughtery?
Daughtery.
Whatever.
Yes, Daughtery.
She's an American attorney and politician who just
Gifford's
started in the Senate. She represents from Districts 24th, it says, which is Adams and Jefferson counties, including Arvada and Fairmount. So she also supported this bill. So she's a turncoat, and we want to get rid of her now. I think we can start recall efforts for her in 3 months?
I think we can. There's a 6-month limitation to start a recall. She's only 3 months into her seat right now, so we would have to wait another 3 months. That doesn't mean we can't get the website up and start collecting interest.
So we're sick of you already, and we are going to come for you, lady. You heard it here first. So there was a fiscal note that did get attached to this bill, which is good for us because if you don't know right now, Colorado is $3 billion in debt in spending, and we don't like that.
Where'd all that pot money go?
Probably lining your governor's pockets.
Most likely.
Kirk Meyer Barb Kirkmeyer proposed that this go to appropriations, which we want, because this is a very costly bill. They were trying to get this passed with a zero fiscal note. It just is another way that they're sneaky. We want to make sure that it goes through appropriations, and we could probably kill an appropriations, seeing how expensive this bill is.
Yeah, appropriations is where things go to die in the legislature. So,
And we like that. There was an amendment that was created on this bill, the L041, that would create a training requirement in addition to the Colorado handgun permitting process. So Colorado was also experiencing a change in, July 1st, to make it harder to have a Colorado handgun permit.
Correct.
It adds an 8-hour training time for it. It also adds live fire and a test to be required to create a Colorado handgun permit.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the CCW will not be enough to be able to purchase semi-automatics if this bill does pass the House and gets signed by the governor. What this bill requires, it requires a basic firearms course of a minimum of 4 hours, plus an enhanced firearms course of 12 hours that is yet to be decided on. I'll let you get into some of the fiscal notes and other things on the bill real quick, but it's
ugly.
It's written very poorly, and it's basically left up to the sheriff to determine what the heck they want to do in their individual county. So if you live in Boulder and Denver, I wish you the best of luck. It's not going to be good.
So what it would require is either a hunter safety course with the Colorado through the Colorado Parks and Wildlife, which would be the short class if you get the hunter safety, or a long class option that's not through Parks and Wildlife, which means you have to get permission from the sheriff's department for fingerprinting, background check, and a behavioral misconduct investigation as well, where they could basically exercise discretion whether they approve of your eligibility or not. And this is a lot of very, very vague language. So right now, Colorado is a shall issue state, which means that the approving county that you live in
100%.
cannot exercise discretion whether you can or cannot get a Colorado handgun permitting. This turns Colorado more of like California and other commie places
To a May issue.
To a May issue, which means they can exercise discretion. It also imposes fees, an application, then you get your card, and then you also need to get permission to say, hey, you know what? We feel that it's okay for you to also then take the classes, either the short or long, and pass with either a 90% or better approval rate. And so what this does, and this is why our guests today are very, very important to these things, this is a very biased way of getting approval from your state. It's biased against people with disabilities. It's biased against people that have learning disabilities. It's biased against people that are illiterate. It's biased against people that are elderly. It's biased against people that may or may not have English as their first or second language. So
Yes.
this was also create a database of who exactly passed these things and has this requirement, which we
Yes.
also know is backdoor gun registration. And we all know what happens with registration. It leads to what?
Confiscation, yes.
This also doesn't really leave much room for the fixed magazines, and we all know how that affects different types of receivers and stuff for firearms. How would we be able to affix magazines to guns? It's all the way bad, and the language is disgusting.
Yeah,
Anything you want to add to that?
I've actually got a question that, since we're on the magazine topic, I think it's a good time. That came from one of our viewers. They asked, what's going on with mag repair kits? Is CBI going after this? The short answer to this is yes. Come July 1st, all FFLs in the state of Colorado will have to have a duplicitous state license that is controlled by CBI. It takes the standard for magazine kits and for magazines over the capacity of 15 from the reasonable doubt standard to the preponderance of evidence standard. So come July 1st, magazine kits will essentially be non-existent in the state of Colorado going forward, for those of you who wanted to know that. I'm sorry.
And we don't like that, because we believe this is a huge infringement on our rights. Obviously, these are standard capacity magazines, but we want to be very clear that there are people out there that are seeking out gun shops like Spartan Defense to find fault in what they're doing.
Correct.
In order to get them in trouble, to put them on the radar of these law enforcement officials and things of that nature, and cause problems for gun shops that are doing nothing wrong. So keep that in mind, that it's not because gun shops like us don't want to provide that service for you. This is essentially putting a target on shops like this to put them out of business, because that's what the goal of all this legislation is.
100%.
Is to rid your access to these types of tools, as well as to make it harder for people like you and me to exercise our constitutional and human right.
Yeah, just to talk about some of the things the bill doesn't mention. It doesn't mention this new license that they are creating through Colorado Parks and Wildlife and the sheriffs of your counties. Does not mention a cap to the fees. Essentially, depending on the county, they can decide whatever they want as far as what fee to assess. The license does state it will be valid for 5 years, and some form of renewal will be required, or some form of additional course in order to purchase semi-automatic firearms. On top of that, guys, there is no way to know really. Here's one of the biggest loopholes in this bill, and I want to be careful about how I state this, but there's no way to really know when that firearm was purchased, if it was purchased before or after the date, unless it's a new model. That being said, I have a feeling that this is going to lead to registration.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that's their goal, is to lead to registration, because they will, with CBI now able to check 4473s, come into store, look at serial numbers and things of that nature, they may collect this information so that they have some form of database to enforce this law. It's definitely scary. It's definitely scary. And it's still one of the most strict gun control laws or bills to go into effect, if it does go into effect in the entire United States. For those of you sitting at home watching this that are not located in the state of Colorado, I should say, why does this matter to you? This is a draft. This is a springboard for them to try this in your state. That's what's going to happen. If it can work here, if it can happen here, it's going to happen where you live soon, especially if you live in a state that could go either way, a swing state. Sometimes it has a Democrat legislator or a Republican legislator, or left or right-leaning legislation. We've already seen New Mexico introduce almost an identical bill without the amendments we've seen recently in the state of New Mexico. So I know they're going through this here too.
Oh yeah, and if they can do this here, they can do this anywhere. And like I said, this is a blueprint to start implementing things like this. And the two biggest states that they want to flip from red to blue is Texas and Virginia. They have huge voting power in those states. So if they can do this here in Colorado, which is exactly why they're created the Colorado Blueprint. If you're not familiar with the Colorado Blueprint, please look that up, because it is very, very sick design on how they basically invaded Colorado with Democratic policy to turn these laws against the people, and that takes the control from the people and puts it into the government, which of course we don't want, because that gets the government in your home, and then you become slave to what your laws are. And they want to implement that here and then take that to Texas and Virginia. So if they can do it here, they can do it elsewhere.
Guys, we'll get into some updates about where these bills are going from here at the end of the show today, but I do want to get to our guests, because we have some very awesome guests tonight, and I really do appreciate y'all coming on tonight to join us for the show. I'll let you do a little reintroduction of them, and then we'll let them introduce themselves.
Awesome. So I am very, very proud and happy to have these two guests on the show. When Teddy and I decided to have this show, I was like, oh, these are the people that I want to get on. We're looking for somebody who would really balance each other out, and through serendipity and the way the universe works, we were presented with both of these amazing people, and we're very happy to bring them to you today. Our first guest, I'm very, very happy to have here. He is Senior Master Sergeant Israel Del Toro. He is a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star Award and a Pat Tillman Award recipient. He was injured while serving in Afghanistan, and I'll let you tell his story. We also have, or I'll let him tell the story. How about that?
And we can introduce Raul here after that.
Yeah, and then we also have Raul Mendez. We're going to start with Israel Del Toro. Israel, if you wouldn't mind doing us some justice and letting everybody know who you are. Yay!
Sure. Thank you. Thanks, Alicia, for the introduction. Yeah, like you said, my name is Israel Del Toro, but all my friends call me DT, so please call me DT on the show.
We'll do so.
Yeah, like you said, I got hurt in Afghanistan back in 2005. 80% of my body got third-degree burns. Was given a 15% chance to survive, and was in a coma for 4 months. And once I woke up, they tell you that, you're never going to walk again. You're going to be on a respirator for the rest of your life. Your military career is pretty much over. And I didn't accept that. I'm not going to let someone tell me what my life's going to be. I'm not going to let a disability define me. I will define what my life is. And so 2 months after I woke up my coma, and they told me all that, I left that hospital walking and breathing on my own. And then 5 years later, I re-enlisted. I became the first 100% disabled airman ever to re-enlist in the Air Force.
Wow.
And during that journey, people always ask me, why do you want to continue to serve? DT? You can retire, get your disability. And, I was starting to kind of do public speaking. And they say, you make a lot of money as a public speaker. And I used to tell them, I was like, you know what? There's hundreds of thousands of people out there that make lots of money and hate their job.
Yeah.
It's like, I love serving my country. I love being in the Air Force. I love being a TACP. That was what my career field, Tactical Air Control Party. We call it airstrikes. So why am I going to give that up for an extra few bucks? So, like I said, I got to re-enlist on February 2010. And then, I finally retired August of 2019 after 22 plus years serving for my country.
Wow.
Wow.
Thank you for your service, sir. Thank you for your service to
Thank
this
you.
nation. It's wow. We can never repay you.
Thank you. I
Quite the
appreciate
man you are, my dear.
it.
So we have also Raul Mendez. He is a home invasion survivor. Raul, welcome to our show. Thank you for
Thank
joining us
you.
here on the Second Syndicate. Please introduce yourself to our audience and let them know who you are.
Now let them know your story.
First of all, DT, just amazing story.
Thanks.
Wow. And thank you for your service. And I mean, especially the will re-enlist again and just fighting the odds and,
True
you
patriot.
know, yeah, true patriot. And, the hospital doctors telling you, that it's not going to happen. And
You proved it wrong.
that will, you prove them wrong, And that's truly
Thank,
amazing.
I appreciate that, Raul. Like I like
Yeah,
to say, we all have a spark that drives us, and you just gotta find it. And
Wow.
my spark was my son, so
for
I want to
sure.
do others
Bless.
best I can, show them I can beat this. So I appreciate that, Raul.
For sure. So that being said, my name's Raul Mendez, and I grew up in California, strict gun laws, but my dad was an enthusiast and got introduced to firearms at a young age. I was about 6 years old when I shot my first firearm, and I mean, after that, I was just hooked. I was hooked after that. Great mentor my dad was. Gun safety, gun safety, gun safety. That was his number one priority.
Yeah.
When I turned 19, got married around 1920, had my first kid, and California is just way too expensive, so I decided to move, to Arizona, where I reside here now since 2009. Now I'm a father of, three amazing girls, got my beautiful wife, and
That's a blessing and a curse, brother, as someone that's a father to two daughters.
And a beautiful
yeah.
wife.
So, and July 3rd of 2022, a buddy of mine invited me to, go over to his house, 4th of July. We did it the day before because, we like to party and, all night. So if we did it on the 4th, we'd have to go to work the next day. So we're like, we'll do it the day before. We'll wake up on the 4th of July, or we'll be up on the 4th of July. So
4th of July crudo.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, a neighbor we never met. Literally, there was probably about like 25, 30 plus. Women, children.
Wow.
It was my pregnant wife. She was 7 months pregnant at the time, my two daughters, and a bunch of other families. Everybody that, nothing out of the usual of people that we got together. And we met a neighbor outside, introduced himself. We were lighting some fireworks, but eventually he makes his way inside the house. And I mean, this guy just decides just to start opening fire at everybody. He was on a mission to just kill every single soul in that house.
Wow.
Why?
We don't know why until this day, but two good friends, were literally murdered, executed by this guy.
Oh, wow.
I was shot in the head. Bullet struck me literally in the right side of my head and took out my left eye.
Oh, jeez.
And I mean, when all hope was lost, my wife tries to pick me up and she sees just this blood just dripping down my face. My pregnant wife, exactly. She sees just this blood and, what are your thoughts when you see somebody just got struck in the head? It's just, it's unheard of. They're dead, 100%. Or, 99 point, in her head, my husband is dead,
Yeah.
So she does the next best thing, runs to the girls, protects them, barricades a door with three other kids, and this guy just continues his killing spree. And I'm divine. I mean, God, that's all I can explain it. He just got me up, and me without thinking, not even knowing what's going on, just just everything's a blank.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I get up and I pulled out my own firearm, which I conceal carried, and was able to literally run to the screams and take this guy's out.
Yes.
I shot him four shot center mass, 2 hit his heart, and that ended, that killing spree there. Yeah.
So good guy with a gun.
Good guy with the gun.
Yeah.
Good guy with the gun.
36, you said, right?
Glock 36, single stack, subcompact, chambered in 45. That's what
Thank
I was
God you had that
carrying.
semi-automatic that day. Thank God.
Yes,
Your
thank God.
magazine-fed semi-automatic.
Yes.
Correct.
There's something that you had said on an interview that I wanted to touch on, and I think this is very, very important, is to lead into the questions that we have for both you and our other guests. I know you don't want me to call you Israel, but I'm so formal. I'm such a old school
DT.
chick, DT. So one of the
Yeah.
things Raul has said in the past was evil will always exist. He said, and we are more ready to confront it with equal force now more than ever. This family will never be victims again. To me, that was such a powerful statement. I mean, shout out to your wife also for having the drive inside of her to protect her kids and protect the other kids as a pregnant woman. I mean, God bless that lady, because
Mama bear.
that's,
Yeah.
we need more women that are armed too. I would have, imagine if there was more people there that had a gun. But, thank you for exercising your right to self-defense and being such an example as to why we cannot let this government step in and disarm us.
Right.
And that leads me to another point that I wanted to talk to DT about is, the promise of a patriot, the patriot's promise. Isn't that something that you know very well, DT? I mean, right now, due to the things that you've experienced, you have very, very limited function now because of disfigurement, and your needs to engage with firearms a certain way, right?
Yeah, this law is not ADA compliant for people that do have disabilities. There's no exception to the bill. And one thing just to add to that, and this is probably the biggest slap in the face to veterans, is there was an amendment proposed to this bill that would have essentially for veterans and active duty military been an exception to this, we'll call it a FOID card requirement. They did not pass that, and one of the reasons given on the floor was they believed that veterans and active duty military would act as criminals and unlawfully transfer these items to people that were not eligible to possess them. They essentially called veterans and active duty military members criminals. It's disgusting, but
Please
sorry.
feel free to give us your 2 cents on that, DT, and talk to us about how laws like this would hinder people like you.
Right. First of all, whoever that person who ever said that was ignorant. They probably never served in their life, never had anyone serve in
They did not.
for this country, don't know what the sacrifice is. So, they can kiss my ass for saying
Yeah.
that. But yeah, so this bill, they don't realize, you said already, it has no exceptions. So now it's already going against the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, which falls under the Civil Rights Act of 1964, I want to say. Meaning, like myself, you look at my hands, I lost fingers. I can't hold a handgun. I can't hold a regular hunting rifle. I'm a para air rifle shooter, meaning I train at the Olympic trainer and I shoot air rifles.
Yes, sir.
Because of my disability, it's called an SH2, meaning, yes, it's a rifle, but I got to put it on a stand so I can shoot, and then the trigger is modified so I can reach it. So,
Yeah, just to be clear, trigger modifications and trigger activators that would increase the fire rate of a firearm are also banned on this bill. That has not changed. They're completely banned. There's no exception to it. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
And DT lives here in Colorado with us.
Yes.
yeah, so I live
Okay.
here, and again, a handgun, I can't reach the trigger. So now, if you're trying to ban, assault style rifles, which I can reach the trigger and they're easier for me to maneuver and load, you're taking that ability of me to defend myself.
Yes, sir.
And it ain't like I live in the city. I live out in the rural Falcon, and the closest police station is about 20 minutes to 25 minutes away.
Wow.
And so imagine, we're out in the rural, we're on 35 acres, all has ranches, and something happens. Or God forbid, I go, because now I do public speaking, like you said, and I travel, and my wife's here by herself, and and she's she feels more comfortable using an AR. She just feels more comfortable, than her Glock 19. She says she has trouble, charging it, and unlike an AR, she can charge it easily. I mean, I'm even afraid of her because she's a better shot than I am.
Women are.
But it's really taking away our right. I think it was the senator from here that said, they're making this law like it's a privilege. It's not a privilege.
Yeah.
It is a right for us. It's a constitutional right under the Second Amendment. And then I understand the sponsor, he did it because he lost his son in the theater shooting.
Yes.
But guess what? I lost my mom to a drunk driver. I was like when I was 14.
Yeah, you didn't blame the car, did you?
I didn't blame car. I didn't blame the alcohol. I blamed the guy.
Exactly.
But you know what? Maybe prosecute people. Make sure they have consequences when they use a firearm, misuse a firearm.
Yeah.
We don't prosecute. Like you said earlier, you talked about that bill where it makes it a felony for stealing a gun.
Yeah.
And people are against it.
Insane.
And then, they're putting all these extra fees for someone who wants to own a gun. It's like almost making it to where only the privileged, people that have money can afford a gun, but yet, those same people, they want their electric cars, try and force that on people. But obviously, not a middle-class person can afford an electric car, but only the high-end can, and they get freaking subsidies for them.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to what Standard Capacity Magazine's old Sully owns. Huh? What do you think? You think he's abiding by the law? I don't think so. I wonder what he owns.
I think if anybody should be red flagged,
It should be Sully. That man's got a temper. Guys,
and all those people, all these same people that don't want us to have our own weapons, they have all their security.
Oh, yeah.
They live all nice little gated areas.
Oh,
They
yeah.
live in the ivory towers.
Yeah.
When you
but
enter that gold dome to testify against these unconstitutional bills, you're disarmed.
And I wish, I hadn't really been paying attention because I was traveling a lot. And I had even told my wife, I'm like, man, I wish I'd paid a little more attention because I would have testified. I would show them, look at my hands. I can't use the weapon you want me to use. And you're not giving me an exception.
Or the respect
Or
for
the
the fact that you're in this position because you swore an oath to protect and defend this nation. There should be some gratitude and some consideration for all that you've given.
Yeah, DT, I would say as well, if this bill does end up getting signed by the governor, I really hope that you will consider being a plaintiff against it as one of the many plaintiffs against this bill and this law that if it goes into effect. I do want to take a quick question from one of our viewers that just as we go here, I want to make sure that we're answering some. I've got a question coming in. It says, so if SD 25003 passes, can I drive to Kansas, New Mexico, Utah, and buy a non-fixed magazine rifle without a problem? The answer is no. You would be able to buy a rifle in another state, but unfortunately those FFLs have to follow the state law in which you reside. So like, let's say that I want to send something to California, or I have a customer come into my store from California that wants to buy an AR-15. Legally, I would not be able to sell that AR-15 to that customer unless it was California compliant.
That's ridiculous.
So just to answer that question, guys, if you have any more questions, please throw them out here, especially for our guests that we have tonight. If you have questions, let us know and we'll ask them.
So, Israel, DT, you have a book coming out, isn't that correct?
It came out last year, which is called A Patriot's Promise. It's
Patriot's Promise.
Yes, sir. I like to say, like I said earlier to Raul, I was like, we all have a spark that drives us, keeps us going. Sometimes you can, find it on your own. Other times you may have to hear a story of someone what they went through and how they didn't give up to help you find your spark. And for years, people had asked me to do this, write a book. And for me, I always said, it's like, dude, I don't even like reading. I was like, you want to write a book? But, I can speak, but I can't be everywhere. But a book can. And the purpose of this book, Patriot's Promise, is based off a promise I made to my dad when I was 12 years old. The night before he passed. His promise was, promise to always take care of your family. And yes, that promise first started with my brothers and sisters and my mom. And then after a year and a half after my dad died, losing my mom, it was just my brothers and sisters. But that promise has evolved to now anyone who I feel is having a hard time. Because, we all sometimes spiral that rabbit hole, but the goal is not to stay in there. You find what drives you. And so I see that these people now as my family. And at the end of the night, it's really at the end of the night, I'm just that 12-year-old kid still trying to make his dad proud of him by honoring his promise. So that's the really purpose of the book. It talks about my journey. It also talks about what my wife went through.
Oh,
Because sometimes, you know, organizations, news is they focus a lot on the servicemen, which I understand, but they forget the family sees you at your worst.
oh yeah.
It's the family that gets the phone calls. It's the family that your spouse that has to make decisions. Hey, we got to amputate your loved one's digits, or if not, he's going to get uh, what's it called? I can't think of the term right now. An infection, which is going to get worse and could probably kill him. So
Yeah.
they're the ones that see us at our worst. So I thought it was very important to put that journey of theirs also. So,
One of the things that, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, DT.
no, go ahead.
One of the common themes tonight that is very important to me is, like Raul, he said he was instilled firearm enthusiasm and firearm safety through his father. You pursued your book and the promise that you made because of your father. The reason I do what I do is because of my father. And, the name of my company, it says here on my shirt, Boomstick Babe, is because that's a nickname that my father gave me when I was a little girl with my, little shotgun, my little 20 gauge. And, he would say, where's my little baby with their little boomstick? And, we were always in rural Colorado. I'm from Trinidad, Colorado. My family's from there. And, we would always drive down to the Whittington Center to shoot. And, my dad would always teach me, this is how you do this, and this is how you shoot your gun. And it became one of my most cherished memories for me was to spend that time with my father shooting guns. And I just want to say, there's such an attack on masculinity right now in our
Yes.
culture. And we're not really praising good men that are raising other good people by demonstrating that protectiveness, by demonstrating what strong masculinity is, and creating good men like you two. And
masculinity is toxic these days.
There is no such thing
Yeah.
as toxic masculinity. It is the absence of
That's what they
masculinity
want you to believe.
in our society that is toxic. We need good, strong leader men. And I mean, shout out to you too, man. I mean, that's
Appreciate
what
it.
brings us all together. Is I wouldn't want to work with people that I didn't feel brought that relevance and didn't bring those characteristics. I mean, you look what you're doing for this community by providing this service. And I think people overlook the importance of having gun shops in their communities, because gun shops are literally one of the first lines of defense to our communities. That's bringing training, that's bringing the tools, that's bringing the education and all of this knowledge and this resource to our communities. And with this attack on our community and these gun shops, that's another way that they're creating a hindrance and not providing that education and not providing that openness to our community, so we have these resources. So shout out to all the good masculine men, both of you, that for
Thank
coming on
you.
the show, and for you for being that leadership as well. I mean, you have a beautiful wife and 2 little girls at your house, man. You have
3
to
now.
provide that leadership.
I was able, thankfully, thank God, I was able to meet my newborn. 2 months
Yeah.
after being shot, my youngest daughter was born, and she was that glue that I held the family together in a time of pain. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
That's what we were looking forward to, and she made it. And she made it even after all the stress and everything.
Well, Raul,
She
you
was your
stepped up
spark,
as a-
Raul.
You stepped up
Yeah.
as a sheepdog that night. You had a bullet through your head, and yet you still managed to take down and stop the threat. That's, I mean, you saved countless lives that night. If it hadn't been for you and your semi-automatic firearm and your training, God knows what may have happened that night. God knows how much worse it could have been.
And honestly, this is, and I'm gonna go back to, and I'm gonna, excuse me if I speak a little.
No, you're fine.
We want you to speak.
We want you. We
Yeah,
want to hear from you.
no.
Yeah.
So when the news came out, or the press conference, hey, there was a shooting, mass shooting, and this many dead, altercation, shots were fired back and forth, and 3 or whatever dead. The media was all over it, like hell yeah, we got ourselves a good story, And then a few days later, a new press conference came out. Hey, actually, one of the victims was actually the guy. This is the guy that started everything for no apparent reason. One of the victims fired back and eliminated the threat. You know, the whole good guy with the gun story.
I'm
Well,
sure that wasn't
guess
reported.
what? No, well, all the media outlets just dropped the story completely. It was freaking crickets. Only one reporter was pretty consistent reaching out to me. He's like, hey, I want to hear your side of the story. You're the guy that stopped the shooting. I want to hear your story. Still remember his name, Justin Lum from Fox, Phoenix. Finally, I went into his studio, did an interview. After that, dead story. Completely dead. It actually took one of my relatives, one of my cousins that's like a brother to me. He lives in Virginia. He lives by DC. He's probably about 8-10 minutes from the NRA headquarters. He physically went to the NRA and said, hey, did you guys hear about the story? No. Well, check this out. This is my cousin, and this is what happened to him. And they were blown away.
Primeras, Holmes.
Yeah. That same weekend or that same Friday, we did a Zoom call, and the following Friday, they're like, hey, we're flying out from Virginia to you. We collaborated on a video, and that's how my story got out. It got, millions and millions of views. At that time, it was actually, for the last few years, it was their top performing, most viewed video. And I mean, that's like when it actually took off and my story, started reaching, millions of Americans,
Wow.
That's what it will bring to people in the second syndicate.
We're on it. Yeah, the second syndicate. We're going to be doing a lot more. We're actually, just so you guys know, we will be planning a rally. Visit our Facebook page, the Second Syndicate. It should be facebook.com// the Second Syndicate. Second being spelled 2ND. We're going to be planning a rally at the Capitol when this bill goes to the House hearings, so that we can be there to testify. We can be there in solidarity with each other and let them know how many people are just opposed to this bill. I hope that we can fill the Capitol Rotunda. We do not have an exact date yet because the date has not been scheduled. That is coming. But at the same time, I do want to highlight on something that Mr. Mendez spoke about. We are losing a culture war in the gun industry. We are losing a culture war because, as you've just stated, they don't tell the stories of heroism. They don't tell the stories of the survivor that fought back and lived with their firearm. All they tell you is the body count. All they tell you is those who were lost. And that's a narrative issue. It's a problem. Right. It's a problem in our media. And for God bless you, sir, for being here today.
Even social media. I mean, we're silenced on social media. 100%. We can't even post. I can't even hold a gun. We're shadow banned. I've been shadow banned since day one.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I was having issues with today, yesterday, the day before is I kept wanting to tag you gentlemen.
Couldn't even tag you.
And to share, like, hey, to drive content back to you guys and let people know who you are so they know who's going to be on our guests and they could support you. Every time I would try to do that, it wouldn't let me do it. And it's like, this is another way that they're attacking this community, is because they want to hide these stories. They want to hide people like DT. They want to hide people like Raul, because they don't want you to think that this is actually happening. These aren't stories from, Juan Crow and Jim Crow. I'm not saying that those stories aren't relevant, but this is happening right now in our society. These voices are being affected right now. These families are being affected right now. And think about, like, for DT's situation, they're telling you, good guys like us don't need guns. You should be relying on law enforcement. You should be relying on these things. But for someone like DT, he's in rural Colorado. Do you know how long it would be for someone to even respond if he's able to even make a call? If he's even physically able to call somebody and reach out to 911 and say, come help?
Not even that.
At a late time.
He lives far. Our police, where this happened to us, the police station is not that far.
Still responds slow.
And I mean, everything, they showed up at the aftermath. They showed up when I'm literally walking out the house, arms around my wife with my Glock in my hand, bleeding, and I'm like, walking out the front door, and I have ARs pointed right at me.
Yeah.
Cops telling me to drop my gun. They don't even know what's going on, but they're there at the aftermath. Everybody would have died. Too late.
Well, the one thing that Raul pointed out, how they, get rid of stories, like, they only care if it's a long rifle that's involved in a shooting, an AR. If it's a handgun, you rarely hear anything about it.
Yeah.
You know, even like a legislator here saying, "Oh, we've had, 60 something mass shootings here in Colorado." I was like, meaning, three or more.
Yeah.
But
3 or
how
more
many of
people.
those were handguns?
Also, how
You
many of
know,
those were gang related? They don't talk about that. How
right?
many of
They,
those were
they don't.
organized crime related? They don't talk about that. Yeah, the definition for a mass shooting is 3 or more people killed, if I remember
Yes, 3
correct.
or
Is it?
more.
Yeah, 3 or
Yeah,
more people
about 3
killed.
or more.
Yeah.
And, and, and
And
you know, and and remember, I wish I could have it. I loved handguns before. My favorite was a Glock 19. That's what I had downrange.
Sure.
And and so I always go in, like I've gone to your store, and I'll just go look, and I'll just like, man, I wish I could grab, because I've always wanted to, get back into shooting 9 mil, and I thought, maybe I'll get an MP5, but again, it's the pistol grip that are so long, and one of your guys actually introduced me to the Maxim Defense
Yeah.
MD9,
Yep.
which is fits me. That I mean, I could literally grab the trigger nice, and I can handle the weapon, and that's hopefully try and get that before this law does pass. But I honestly think the whole purpose of this law is really to close as many gun stores as they can, because
No, it
it's going to
is.
get slapped down by the Supreme Court.
100%.
It's
They're trying to go after
yeah.
the sale of the items versus the possession of the items. And another thing, next time you're in, I definitely want to show you a Flux Raider because I think it may work for you. We are the exclusive dealer in Colorado for those, and I'd love to show you what that's about. It actually converts a SIG 320 into essentially a carryable SMG with a deployable brace. So next time you're in, love to show you that as well. I think that might be a good solution for you.
So I want to just side note, a tangent here. I really wanted to have Raul on the show. I was like, I really want to have Raul on the show. And Teddy was like, we need a second guest. We can't just have a show with one person. We should have more people. It helps engage conversation. And I kept thinking, I was like, I can't pair Raul with somebody who isn't, who would take away. We need equal people. And I was like, he was like, have you thought of somebody else? I was like, no, I think it's just going to be Raul. And then, I'm sitting here at the shop, we're working, and then Teddy comes in and he's like, we have our second guest, I bet, for our show. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I think you need to meet him. And so I walk over to the showroom of the shop, and there's DT. And I just put my arms around him, and I was like, you have no idea what a blessing you are, sir, and how on time you were, and how the universe provides, and how God listens.
I don't believe in coincidence. There is
no such thing as coincidence.
100%.
And it's like, we needed people that, just like you were saying, DT, that they shine. And I was concerned about putting Raul with someone that would not have the same shine and wouldn't have the same presence, and it wouldn't be as confounding and as inspiring and as impactful to people, because I really wanted to make sure that we're expressing to the world that this is real. These things happen. These are real people. And I saw your big shiny face, and I was like, oh my God, this is so perfect. And it was just so in alignment with what we're doing. So I couldn't be happier than to have these two guests here together. And it wouldn't have happened if we didn't have this gun shop here. It wouldn't happen if we didn't have these resources. So I just wanted to share that with everybody and let you know that, we are making progress. And it is very, very important that people support us and support people like UDT and support people like Raul and support people like Teddy and me too, because this is how we change the narrative, and this is how we
100%.
normalize gun culture, and this is how we become united. And the stronger we get, the more united our voice, and the more we echo through the world, not just in our echo chamber, but sharing these kinds of stories and these things with people that may not be very pro-gun. One of the things I like to tell people in my my concealed handgun class that I have is, even if you don't like guns, do you know how to recognize if a gun is being used against you if the safety is on? Do you know if you would be able to disarm that firearm? Do you know how to recognize these types of things? And hey, maybe you're not prepared to use a gun in self-defense, but if one's being used against you, would you know how to disarm that gun? Do you know how to drop that slide, or drop that magazine and rack that slide and clear that chamber? Yeah. There's a lot of things that people don't understand when it comes to gun culture, and providing.
We used to teach gun safety in schools.
Yeah.
Stop, don't touch, leave the area, find an adult. I remember that very clearly. Back in the day, it's no longer allowed to be taught in schools, which is ridiculous, because what we're doing is we're promoting ignorance, and ignorance is dangerous.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So thank you guys very much for being willing to, be vulnerable and share your stories with us. And, come join us on this journey to normalize gun culture and to bring this voice of real people like you to the masses and to the community. We have heard how many times that your voices like this and these avenues are shadow banning these types of avenues of good news and triumph and these, to me, I mean, I know these are tragedies and these things that happen to you gentlemen, were not ideal, but in my perspective, these are triumph stories. These are stories that people need to hear to know that, we can prevent things by educating and arming our society and becoming that armed Colorado, becoming that armed America, that we can start pushing back against the bad guys. Because to me, I would, there's no such thing as a victim if you have a defense, in my perspective. And guns do escalate situations or de-escalate situations.
Oh
yeah.
So thank you for being willing to share those stories.
100%.
Well, and Lisa, the thing, what you guys are doing, it's, the role of a leader is to make things better for those who follow, even though that you may never see the benefits.
Yes, sir.
People have been fighting stuff like this. There's been people, like in California, good law-abiding citizens that can't, defend themselves or can't, get things, or even where I'm from originally, Chicago, and they stand up and fight, even though they may never see the benefits, trying to change things for other states. And that's what one tries to do, You talk about, all these places that, they're like, well, get rid of guns, everything is better. And they like to use the whole minority thing, to protect minorities, But yet when, the 2020 riots, how many people were out getting guns to protect their families, because they were terrified.
And look at
I remember
panel.
Right. I remember a story, right? I remember a story in Chicago where this old man, in Chicago, inside the city, you can't have a firearm. And this old man, I think he was like 70, almost 80 years old, lived by himself. Someone broke into his house with a gun. And luckily, the old man had a gun and fired at him. And who do you think got arrested?
The old man.
The old man.
The old man.
Yeah, that's
imagine
something that a lot of people don't understand, is that the use of your firearm and what occurs after it, usually arrest is involved. It's very little chance that you're going to be sleeping in your own bed that night because when police arrive on scene, they are not your judge, jury, and prosecutor. They are there to collect evidence, collect facts, and report those to the district attorney or the prosecutor that would be prosecuting a case, whether it's against you or against the individuals that try to harm you. So that's pretty important. That's something that's taught in most CCW classes and CHP classes is, you have the right to remain silent. Invoke that right. You are the victim of a crime. Let your lawyer sort out the details. Otherwise, bad things happen.
And I want people to understand you need to invoke your Fifth Amendment right. You need to verbalize, I'm more than willing to share what happened here, but in the presence of my attorney, and as for now, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right. People forget that the day, if we think back to when Roe v. Wade was overturned, everyone was all in a hubbub about that. But other two things happened that day, which was the Bruin decision, which was great, and also that they gave immunity to law enforcement for not Mirandizing you. So it's very, very important to exercise your right to silence and not incriminate yourself, because we're told all the time you're innocent until proven guilty. That's not how this works. And we've all seen, the color chart that they put next to you to see, if this story is worthy of helping you or hindering you in the eyes of the media. I actually got a DM last night from a person who I'm not going to share his name, who was in a self-defense shooting in Colorado, and they confiscated his firearm. He was on the premises of his building where he works and he lives, and the cop who actually showed up to the scene is trying to red flag him for using his gun in self-defense against someone that was trying to harm him.
This is what we were afraid of with red flag laws, and now we're seeing the fruit bear.
We have to wrap up the show here because our friend DT is a hockey fan, ladies and germs. And
get him to his game.
He's got to watch his game.
Let me just go through where we go from here, guys. I've got a lot of people asking questions. Where do we go from here? Well, we talked about the rally we're going to be holding here soon at the Capitol. Please go to the Facebook page. Go and join. Make sure you like and subscribe as well to our YouTube, guys. Make sure you ring that bell, or you're not going to receive any notifications about when we post content like this. We're going to try to be doing this on a regular basis going forward. But other than that, where these bills stand now. So this is officially passed in the Senate. This will go to the House. We have to go through a House committee hearing, which is when we're planning to hold this rally of Second Amendment lovers and freedom and patriots lovers. That being said, We don't have an exact date for that yet. It could be very shortly. We don't know just yet. We will inform you as soon as possible, and that's why joining that event page is very important. As far as the other bills are concerned, the ammo bill, that has to go through a full House vote. Please, I mean, we're going to put up some links here soon that are going to allow you to email essentially every single person in the House and the Senate and let them know how you feel. Please keep it respectful when you do this. If you want to give stories of personal self-defense, things that have occurred to you in your life, how this bill affects you, how it affects you as a constituent to them, those go a lot further to yelling and screaming and calling them traitors.
Because they're looking at us already like we're crazy. And you've seen the video of Senator Sullivan going crazy. We can't give them anything to use against us to make it seem like we are not sound mind and body, righteous individuals.
As far as the criminal penalties bill, that will also be going to a full House vote here soon. Just to be clear, this does not criminalize the possession of a stolen firearm. It criminalizes the theft of a firearm. There is no way that this could affect 2A people. This is no way that this could affect your rights. This is about punishing criminals for stealing your firearms or firearms from other individuals.
We would have not supported this if it had any effect on people like you and me.
Nor would Armagost have brought this bill as a sponsor. He is extremely pro 2A.
House Bill 251133, which is the 21 age, raising the ammo bill to age to 21, is going to be up for housework at 9 a.m. on 2/21/25. We can't speak up that day. You just have to listen and watch it. Hopefully we will live stream that here on this channel, and that way we can all listen together and comment and kind of follow along and educate you
100%.
on the process of what is happening at that time. Gentlemen, would you like to please share where everybody can follow you on social media and get in touch with you and support you, because we want people to be able to support you as well.
Go ahead, Raul.
Yeah, actually I have a website with all my links. It's ga110ent.com. Literally stands for Gallo. That's what people call me. I'm a dad of nothing but girls, and all my pets are girls. So I'm literally the rooster of the house, they say. So
That's how that goes.
Yeah, so that's, it's actually first time sharing on any live or online of why GA110, but the 110 is literally LLO. But it's so GalloENT.com, so GA110ENT.com. You can find all my links.
And Senior Master Sergeant, sir, if you want to plug your book one more time for us so that our viewers can know about it, and also where they can reach out to you and follow you, sir.
Yes, sir. So, like you said, my books, it's called A Patriot's Promise. It's you can find it anywhere bookstores are sold, but it's also on Audible. A lot of people like listening to books now. But I have a website. It's called Del Toro Strong, where you can find all my information. Like I mentioned earlier, I do public speaking. So if you'd like to hire me to speak at an event, you can find me there. And then my social media links. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, X, they're all, I think my Instagram is IDT21. My Facebook is Israel DT Del Toro Jr. And then my Twitter is Del Toro21. So that's where you can find me. And it is crazy, the last part, before we leave, that ammo, you have to be 21. Someone can go to war at 18, but hey, you can't buy ammo.
And get a prison sentence and get married.
Yep.
But you can't defend and protect those things.
Yep. One other thing I just want to add, guys, for those of you viewing tonight, is ask your store if they're involved, your local gun store. If you're shopping big box, understand that they didn't show up. They haven't showed up to a single hearing. They're not interested in your rights. They're gonna keep operating amongst the rules that are set for them. They did not show up to any of these hearings that I've seen. That being said, ask your store 2 questions. Number 1, are you involved in this fight? Are you going to be at the rallies that are being held? Have you testified against these bills? Here's another thing to ask him. If you're in the state of Colorado, is your FFL, is your gun store a member of the Colorado Federal Firearms Licensee Association, who has been a huge part of this battle? It is the first ever trade association for federal firearms licensees in the state of Colorado. Right now, we're made up of a little over 150 members, including some of the biggest FFLs in the state. We've got a long ways to go. There's over 2,000 members here in the state of Colorado. Also, for those of you who do want to help out in the fight against this, they did just start a donation-based site. Do you remember the name?
So we have a Give, Send, Go that we're going to put all these links. So in the bottom of this video, once we close out, we're going to put the social media links for our amazing guests. We're going to put the links for our website, for thesecondsyndicate.com, where you can go and sign up and get involved. And go to the Second Syndicate. We'll put the website down there and start getting involved in our mailing list so we can start emailing you and updating you on the things that are going on, as well as follow us on Facebook. And I just want to shout out to the CFFLA. I don't know if you guys know this, but a good friend of mine by the name of Sean Steele decided that we needed a representation for federal firearms licensee in
Crazy
Colorado.
that we never had that before.
I know.
Isn't that insane?
There's not very many in the United States. So shout out to him for putting all his hard work and effort in, and he really needs your support financially to make donations.
And lobbying efforts. So
Teddy,
please, even if it's $1, donate to CFFLA, please. We
my
need your support.
amazing co-host right here is being very humble. He is the vice president of the CFFLA, and I am the founding secretary of the CFFLA because of Sean. So we're heavily involved in getting people organized. And if you are not an FFL, that's okay, and you want to get involved, you can go to our website. You can sign up for our newsletter.
We need
you can
help.
Subscribe. You can follow me on all my socials, at Boomstick Babe on X, at the Boomstick Babe on IG. I'm basically the Boomstick Babe on every friggin' platform. So go and check me out and find me and reach out and see if you
Just
can
make sure
volunteer.
make sure it's not a fake person, right? You've had, you've had some fakes show up.
I've had some imposters try to, represent me out there. I'm getting a lot of some goofy things going on, but support us, like us, share this content, hit the bell. That's how you can support us.
Yeah, make sure you ring the bell on YouTube. If you don't ring the bell, you will not receive notifications of any of the content we put out. That is very important.
And if you even if you don't have money, by following our friends here tonight, by sharing our content, by liking our content, by boosting this kind of stuff, you're getting their stories out there. Yeah, and that's what we want. We want people to start realizing that these resources are here for you, and we want to be the ones that bring it to you.
Yeah, please share it on your social media about the show tonight, guys, so that these gentlemen's stories can get out there. It helps us get around that anti-2A algorithm, and it helps push this content on YouTube and other sources. So regardless, thank you guys for tuning in tonight. To our guests, God bless you both. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate hearing your stories and hearing your perspective on the Second Amendment tonight.
So in closing, I want to ask each one of our guests to say one quote and your favorite gun. So we're going to start with the Senior Master Sergeant. Give us a quote that you want us to remember, and then what your favorite firearm is.
Well, one of my quotes is that actually it's not tattooed on me. My forearm: stay strong, finish strong. And right now, my favorite is my honey badger, my 300 blackout right now.
I wish I had that gun.
We are big honey badger fans here at Spartan Defense.
We're big
I can
Q
tell you
fans
that.
around here, I'll tell you that.
We do like Q. We do like Q. They like to do things differently, sometimes be a little different in their comments, but I love Q.
I love Q. I love Q. All right, Raul, give us a quote, one of your favorite quotes that you want us to remember you by, and your favorite gun.
Honestly, I just keep it simple, and even like on just protect your own. I mean, it's as simple as that. It doesn't have to be all complicated. I say many quotes, but that's like the main one. Like that's like my responsibility, everybody's responsibility as as a man, as a mama bear and all that, protect your own. And that's what I feel like, that's what I lived by, and that's what I'm going to continue to live by. And I kind of prove myself then. And my favorite firearm, which I still have, I got it back from the PD, but it's definitely my bloody Glock 36.
Nice.
Still full of blood.
I'm glad you got that back. That's usually pretty hard to do, man. It usually is pretty hard to do.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. It's been an honor for me. Absolutely. I'm pretty sure Teddy is, very grateful to have you guys here and the support that you've brought to our channel. We really appreciate you. And if there's anything that we can do to support you and help you, we'd love to have you back anytime. And however we can support you, count us in. And guys, thank you for everybody tuning in tonight. That's watching the show live, and that's going to be sharing the show. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, and we'll see you next week with another edition of this Second Syndicate. The Second Syndicate, where the second is first. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, guys. Thank you. God bless. Good night. Good night. God bless.